now we're in a partnership with PBS Frontline, which is here at WGBH, and we're going to be using, the resources that they have and the resources that we have to do more video reporting and more print reporting, and just kind of like using the best of traditional journalism and using the internet to do a lot of new things. So I'm very excited about it.
And now the person that has the professional voice.
Hi, I echo Renee's welcome. Welcome to our city. We love this city. We hope you do too. And I also want to thank Charlotte for all her hard work, but also say publicly I can thank all of these people finally, because the kind of work that I do is often aggregate work. And so we steal from the Globe, the Christian Science Monitor, and Toronto Bureau. We use them as resources, terrific resources, and the reporters for both the print operations are fantastic. And this young lady, I remember when after the election in Iran and the street protests, and everybody scrambling because you couldn't get any more information. NPR reporters were outside the country, everybody had been kicked out, BBC reporters. And I remember reading this line about the Tehran Bureau, and I thought, oh, there's this huge operation somewhere. And I called you, Kelly, while I'm living in my parents' house, and there she was, the whole thing. But the information that you were getting from inside that country is invaluable. So we've had Kelly on the program as well, and I'm thrilled to see, all the attention she's getting. We have an embarrassment of riches at National Public Radio. Again, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, let's see how to explain this. We are a locally produced program. Here and Now is on WBUR, which is based at Boston University Radio, WBUR, although it's a professional organization. But we are distributed over several hundred radio stations across the country from there. Not by NPR, but by a company called Public Radio International. But we feel like we're part of the NPR family. Public radio, despite what you may have heard elsewhere, is, well, I'll give you BUR's example. 7% of our funding, just 7% of our funding comes from the government, over 50% comes from listeners, and the rest is a spackling together of grants and underwriters. And we are phenomenally successful right now. It's been sort of an odd kind of thing. 5–10 years ago, we wondered how the advent of the internet was going to impact radio. And our listenership has grown, and I knew it had, but I said, put together some stats for me, and so here they are. Morning Edition, which is our morning program, has the largest radio audience of any program in the country. It beats all 3 network television morning programs together. I know, it's amazing. And our dear colleagues that we admire so much, who do so much work, as Renee pointed out, expensive work at newspapers while they're struggling to keep afloat in the face of the internet threat. NPR programming reaches more people than the circulation of USA Today, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the LA Times, Washington Post, and the next top 45 newspapers combined. And here in Boston, WBUR is #1 in morning drive and #2 in the afternoon. Fabulous, wonderful. Our listeners are incredible during drive time. 1-800-909-9287 is the number to call. When we have our fundraisers, we're embarrassed at how well we do. And also, we have had a very symbiotic relationship with the internet. The internet, as opposed to taking from us, actually gives to us, because we find more people listen online. And we have turned our web pages into huge news resources that can stand by themselves, and so there's a symbiosis there. So we have a very different issue than print has. However, I would say that one of the issues I want to raise that I think that we confront, that I think newspapers do as well, is partisan broadcasting. Just to sort of explain again, from those of you who might have been outside of the country for a while and not understood this, or we found a lot of our own colleagues didn't understand this during a recent election that we had here in Massachusetts that you might have heard about. The fellow named Scott Brown won. And I was running around with my hair on fire at this big, huge, successful radio station, trying to tell people, and Renee and I could probably have one conversation about this, trying to tell people what was going on in this town. We had Oh yes, for some of you who may not know, I'm sorry, I should have presumed, although it's become like the headline that ricocheted around the world. This was the seat opened by the late Ted Kennedy. When he passed, it was a special election. The Democratic candidate was considered a front-runner. She was something like 20 points ahead after the early primary. We had a special election maybe 5 weeks later. And everybody just kind of like a groundhog went underground, except several of the radio stations in town that are overtly partisan. And I just want to back up and there were at least 3 or 4 that right around in December, when we had the Christmas plane bomb attack, which was, bungled horribly, I think, by the Obama administration. Right at that time, if you were listening to these stations, and I listen to every station in town, I think it's part of my job. I go up and down the dial all day, every day, and I listen and hear what's going on. I listen to all the cable channels.